Okay, so I'm like, again, slowly getting my shit together. But as we enter the back half of our reading order, yeah. Ugh. So I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I'm here. I'm ready. But now I'm very excited to introduce another reader who has incredible literary citizenship and who has been just an amazing inspiration for me, not only as a writer, but also as an editor. And that is Melissa Ashley Hernandez. And Melissa is a Latinx writer and the founding editor-in-chief of the Minisan Project, which I love with all my heart. She's currently earning her MFA in creative writing and publishing, and her poetry can be found in the Minisan Zine, the Daily Drunk Magazine, and Famadan Journal. Her upcoming chapbook, The Love in Between, comes out January 20th, and her pieces tonight are all going to be from that beautiful chapbook. So thank you, Melissa. Go ahead and take it away. I'm excited to hear the chap poems.
Okay, yeah. I'm still kind of reeling from that too. What a poem to follow, huh? Incredible. So all of these poems that I'm about to read are all from my chapbook, The Love in Between, which is coming out in January 20th. I write a lot about love. I write a lot about family. And I write a lot about the love you can find just within your life, throughout life and things like that. So the first poem I'm going to read, I actually wrote it while I was in Ireland last summer. Remember when we could take trips? Yeah, that was great. So, Calling Mom Mobile. I miss it. It could be that I miss it most when I'm in unfamiliar territory, but regardless. The skies here are always gray, even when the hot sun bakes the uneven cobblestone. Home is plush green grass and the cherry blossom petals that adorn it every spring. Even the flowers here are different, although yesterday I saw one that reminded me of Mama's smile. Home is raking up acorns every fall and laughing as we remind my brother of how he used to call them coconuts because at 6 he couldn't quite wrap his lips around the right words yet. Here it rains more often than not, which is not as bad as it sounds, at least if you don't get caught in it. Just like home, a cup of hot tea can make rain look like magic. Okay, so that was that one. My next poem, thank you. My next poem is, I wrote it about my grandfather. My grandfather passed in 2017 in my senior year of college. It was a really hard time for me, and I found that I was at a loss for words for a really long time. And at that time, I hadn't quite found my way back to writing. And when I did, I found that there were a lot of words that I had to say about him. So I have this poem and another poem about him as well in my chapbook, but this one specifically is called Abuelo's Spirit. Elderly man in the bodega, you tell me that I'm very beautiful. I force a smile and say thank you. 22, and I am already numb to men's compliments. Then you look into my eyes and speak to me of inner beauty, pointing towards my heart. Eso vale más de que dinero. I squeeze your arm, smiling tenderly this time, your words echoing in my mind. Abuelo used to say that often. I buy my bread and walk back up the street. So there's that one. That one's done. This thing has the perfect title because I really do get performance anxiety. And I have an undergrad in acting directing and I still get nervous reading. This upcoming poem is called The Block. Unable to work, I took a walk, layered hat, gloves, coat, scarf, boots, and hustled down the uneven pavement, wet from last night's rain, to the little park down the block. I walked in circles around swings and slide, kicked damp mulch, traced with fingers circle patterns on green benches. After some time, I walked home. I entered through my backyard gate, listening to the creaking of the trees and the late night shuffling raccoons. I climbed to the top of the small hill and, cold seeping in my bones, jumped 3 times. Third time catching heel in a rabbit hole and sliding down the muddy slope. At the bottom stood our youngest Peach, still naked from winter. Taking off my glove, I reached for the base of a limb. Branch by branch, I felt in amazement. The tiniest buds had started to bloom. And I have 2 more. One a little lengthy, and then the other one is a little short, so I'll end on a more positive note. This poem is called Seagulls. Sitting on the Sandy Hook shoreline with my toes pressed into the gritty sand and Billy Collins lying on my lap, I breathe in the crisp ocean air and close my eyes. I hear a distant bird's cry and look to the sky to watch the airborne scavengers fight for a French fry and a few scraps of bread. As my eyes catch on the New York City skyline, my mind can't help but wander her streets. Her poor sidewalk beggars pleading for spare change or searching alleyway dumpsters for measly leftovers like awning pigeons, othered by those lucky enough to be the passers-by. Not allowed to sleep on park benches, forced to take their newspaper blankets and make their beds on cold concrete. There they stay, sitting silent on stone, in the rain, sleet, heat, and snow. Does anyone ever realize when they are gone? Do any of their names ever get written in the pale sky? The seagulls circle in the air around me as if to flaunt their feathered advantage. I am mesmerized by these greedy birds that scan the crowd for faultless children to dispossess them of a chip or two, a meal fit for an avian king. Okay, and then my last one is just called plainly Love. Okay. Love. My head rises and falls with your chest as I read you poems from my journal. You say you never understood poetry until the passion in my voice seeped through your skin and intertwined with your bones. I reach one about you and quickly turn the page, but you place your hand on mine. Show me the metaphors you use to paint me. Your words are the sweetest palette. Your lips, the most beautiful paintbrush. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That again was Melissa Ashley Hernandez, who had just read to us some poems from the chapbook The Love in Between, which I believe is coming out from Lazy Adventure. Is that right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. And that comes out on January 20th of 2021. It'll be the first, we know about some like second or third most important thing that's happening on January 20th, 2021, but this is the first most important thing that's happening on January 20th.
Yeah, what
and
a
the
date,
pre-orders, yeah, right. And the pre-orders are going to start very soon. They start right at the turn of the year, the beginning of January, so check out Lazy Adventure for that. Also, again, she's editor-in-chief of the Mini-Son Project, an amazing project related that gives some space to small poems, and they're currently open for submissions for their monthly issues and for their brand new biannual sonnet issue. So I know we have some sonneteers on the call. I hope you'll consider checking out the Mini-Son Project. And please follow Melissa herself on Twitter at MACHWriting, MACHWRITING, and on Instagram at Melissa MACHWriting, all one word. Yeah, so I'm excited to enter. I know it's always a little bittersweet to get to our last couple of readers of the evening, but I'm excited to introduce another reader who's a returner to performance anxiety and who's going to be actually a bit more involved with performance anxiety going forward in a very exciting capacity, and that is Samuel J. Fox. Samuel J. Fox is an essayist and poet living in the southern U.S. He's poetry editor at Bending Genres and has been published in numerous online and print journals. Sam, thank you for being here, as always, and I'm excited to hear what you're going to share with us tonight.
Thanks, Tom. I'm that kind of poet that talks before he does any poems, and I hate that about me, but it's just how I am. So it's winter. This is a winter poem. I'm gonna try to keep it short. My talking. So, fragments before the coldest winter storm in a century. Trigger shy, the clouds withhold their water. It's no matter. My shadow says it can read the braille in sleet. The dying cattails swoosh their dumb, beautiful heads in the wind, as though numbers and degrees doesn't exist to them. The ivy, dead on the white picket fence, needs to be plucked. Elsewise, who could see the white paint behind the dark rose bushes? Random winter lightning scrapes serpentine behind an armada of cloud cover. Somewhere, the devil leads hoofprints in muddy snow. There is always a war with subtlety inside the self. How do you explain grief? It isn't a lack of something, darkness and absence of light, or silence the lack of petulant sound. You were here once. Grief cannot be a lack of happiness if happiness, like a fox, flits back between the swatches of blackberry brambles. You were here once. My jawline remembers your fingernail, as though you scratched a scar in me that I recall as joy. The clouds finally decide enough with patience. Like a telephone at 3 a.m., I don't wish to answer my God. And the rain turns to ice the moment it kisses the pavement. And the power lines, the next morning, will be like finding a garment discarded for years beneath the first place you looked for it. Oh, how I looked for it. All this indelible truth. My next poem is a love poem, and this is called Gratitude. I hope you guys like this one. It took a lot for me to write this one. As the gallop of windblown leaves crescendos through the cooling days ahead, I'd like to thank you for breaking my heart. The way the gravel giggles beneath my combat boots, the way the streetlights buzz in their white gossamer shine, these long, desolate, drizzle-drenched walks towards loving the self, all lead to ways I've learned to live with the bloated sadness and being broken. There is still so much gratitude I could express in memories, but in reality, anguish has become an anchor. Your empty ring finger, a vanishing morning star. And yet, the love remaining like a little thread I have tied to my thumb, so that were you to return, I can reel myself back out of the fog and into clarity. I can still be grateful for the constellations of freckles just above your collarbone, the way I named it goodness. And I can still be grateful for the hearth of your solar plexus,
So our last reader who's joining us this evening, although he could not make it live because of the massive time difference between us and him, was kind enough to share a video of a live Zoom performance called Seeing and Not Seeing that I'm excited to put into splice into this video in a moment. And that's Dr. Lee Campbell. Dr. Lee Campbell is an artist, filmmaker from London and curates Homo Humor, Film and Artist Moving Image, the first of its kind project on contemporary queer male film and moving image practices that explore humor and LGBTQ plus storytelling. And this film, again, is a live Zoom performance called Seeing, Not Seeing.
I, I, discover the same other whilst under the cover, creeping, seeking, creeping, covert operations, my teenage fascinations, awkward altercations with non-queer populations, sensations that taught me, if ever they caught me, side cautiously deliberately blur, words that infer derogatory slur. Discover the same other whilst under the cover. Discover the same other whilst under the cover. Spending my teenage years engaged in acts of looking at something in ways I was told I shouldn't. I got very clever at seeing without being seen. Growing up, I had this book about relationships with a gay male couple with moustaches. I don't have a moustache, so I can't be gay, I thought. My sexy Italian geography teacher, my imagination in your class took me everywhere. Seeing Andrew in the changing room cleared up any doubt in my mind. Spending longer looking at George Michael than learning his song lyrics. Chelsea versus Arsenal. Dad watched the match. I watched the players. Dad remembers the midfielder's tackle. Discover the same creeping. I remember the midfielder's tackle. Dad remembers the midfielder being shown the red card. I remember the midfielder's red underwear showing. Dad remembers listening to hear who will next play against Chelsea. I remember listening to imagine the midfielder. Dad remembers telling me that as I'm into football I might like rugby. I remember agreeing. Saturday job in McDonald's sucks, only made bearable by the sight of my colleague in the changing room. That time in the 90s when the only way I could see dudes in their underwear was in vintage fashion magazines from the 70s. Creeping downstairs whilst parents sleep to watch crap amateur straight porn on Television X, just to see a man naked. Creeping. A young Rupert Everett, full frontal on late night BBC 2, black and white, undiluted the beauty of his manhood. Creeping, seeping, discovering the same other, whilst uncreeping cover, seeping, discovering the same other, whilst under. The look I got from the cashier when I bought a copy of Playgirl, uncreeping cover, seeping, peeping. Smuggling copies of Gay Times into my room just to see guys like me. Peeping. One page of men's underwear in my mum's 300p shopping catalogue. Was mum more shocked at seeing me getting off, or more because I was getting off on a guy? Gay kissing scenes on TV. Dad trying to hide his discomfort, and sometimes not.
Aye, aye.
If only my art teacher with a life drawing class model.
Aye, aye. Aye, aye. Aye, aye. Aye,
Shoplifting, naked guy on birthday card for straight women.
aye, aye. Aye, aye.
Brighton,
Aye,
first
aye.
gay pub, Queen's
Aye,
Arms,
aye.
George Street.
Aye, aye.
Heart a flutter,
Aye, aye.
legs like mush.
Aye, aye.
Street was George, my previous
Aye,
crush.
Aye, aye.
Early noughties in my
Aye,
early
aye.
20s, King's
Aye,
Arms,
aye.
Soho. I
Aye, aye.
discovered bears and cubs
Aye,
don't
aye.
just live in the
Aye,
forest.
aye. Aye, aye. Aye, aye.
Cruising
Aye,
you,
aye.
will you cruise me back?
Aye, aye.
Then bruising
Aye,
me,
aye.
you're the wrong kind
Aye,
of
aye.
fat.
Aye,
Some
aye.
bear over the pain though.
2 steps forward, 2 steps back.
2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Rather
Always
than
2
telling my
steps
dad I
forward,
was going
always
to
2
gay
steps
Paris,
back.
I told him France. A colleague referred to my
2 steps
fiance
forward,
as my
2
friend.
steps forward,
Acts
2
of
steps back.
politeness or deliberate
Always 2
maleficence.
steps forward,
Always
always 2
2
steps
steps
forward,
forward,
always 2
always 2
steps
steps
back.
back.
Aye, aye.
Invisible
Aye, aye.
queer, seeing and
Aye,
looking.
aye. Discover
Imagine
the
me
same
here,
other.
looking
Aye, aye.
teen
Under
magazine.
the cover.
Look
Discover
beyond
the
fear,
same other
see and be
whilst
seen.
under the cover.
Discover the
Creeping,
same other
seeping,
whilst under the
peeping,
cover.
Creeping,
The brilliance
seeping,
of being
peeping,
through my
creeping,
resilience of
seeping,
seeing.
peeping, creeping, seeping, peeping.
So that again was Seeing Not Seeing by Dr. Lee Campbell, who you can find on Twitter at Lee JJ Campbell, LeeJJCampbell. And you can also find more of Lee's film work and other work that he's curated on filmfreeway.com/Lee Campbell, all one word. So yeah, wow, it's again always bittersweet to get to the end of a reading order, but my heart got ripped in half somewhere in there and is slowly stitching itself back together. So it is sad to get to the end, but thank you so much to all of our readers for sharing their incredible work with us this evening. Thank you to our listeners for giving this hour of your lives over to poetry. And I hope if you're listening, you might consider dropping us a line at Performance Anxiety, Performance ANXT on Twitter, and soon to be on Instagram too, or at my email, which is just tomsnarski@gmail.com. We would love to have you share your work at a future event. Tell your friends. That's how we get some of our amazing readers. We get these beautiful, close-knit poetry communities, collectives that show up on here, and it's just a really beautiful thing. Our next reading is going to be on January 21st, which will be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. There's definitely slots still open for that one. And as a closing gesture, I'm going to read a poem that feels holiday-ish, called Home Again by the poet Nyla Northsun. Home again. My own bed, my own couch, and especially my dear, sweet, patient computer. Shit. Now why won't it work? New downloads, telephone company bad connection. And my tomatoes waited for me, bright red and heavy. And all my half-done projects stayed that way, for me, knowing my truck-weary body was anxious to accomplish something. Maybe I'll even finish one before I start another. But Xmas is around the corner. Oh, I'm so all over the place. Happy to be home.